Here, brought to you by Vote Common Good, along with partnership with a number of other friend organizations, people of common good faith that are raising a moral voice against the Reawaken America tour. Really excited for you to be with us here today. Here's what's happening. I'm in Minneapolis. I was planning to be in Miami, but lots of things turned out, and I got sick. So if I seem a little peaked right now, I'm alone in my basement, not contagious to anyone. I'm also not feeling well. So anyway, I'm not in Miami, but people are in Miami. And the reason they're in Miami is that there's this effort called the Reawaken America Tour. And the Reawaken America Tour is a Christian nationalist backed and Christian nationalist promoting event run by a guy named Clay Clark. And it involves a whole bunch of other people, the My Pillow guy, Roger Stone, Michael Flynn. They're events that they run all over the country. And they're in the Miami area today. But they're not just in the Miami area. You might know that, the twice impeached and failed presidential candidate and terrible president of the United States, Donald Trump, owns a golf course there called the Doral Golf Course. They're holding this Reawaken America rally over the weekend, this weekend-long conference, Christian Nationalist Supporting Conference, at that golf course. So that's why they're there. So a number of faith organizations led in most part by Faithful America, Christians Against Christian Nationalism, Faith in Public Life, Vote Common Good, have all come together to raise awareness about what's going on with this thing and how these people who are running this event, I personally believe it's a grift. I think it's people trying to take money from people of faith. And they mix this event all together with politics. It's a bunch of election denialism. It's a bunch of Christian nationalism. It's a bunch of conspiracy theories across the board. I was attended the event in New York in August, and they have tables around and so on. I have a bunch of videos on our stream. So wherever you're watching this, you can probably find those videos as well to see what's sort of going on. But it's like a conference. This one was in an outdoor tent, and there's tables and display people and all that stuff. And they're just pitching ideas from, that 5G cell towers are causing cancer to a bunch of anti-COVID stuff to talking about how Democrats are, trying to human traffic children and just the myriad of nonsense. So it's a bit of a, I don't know, it kind of felt a little bit like, you're at the cantina in that Star Wars movie and just sort of the mashup of all these kind of conspiracy theorist, Christian nationalist folks. I'm imagining it'll be a very similar scene happening down there in Doral. So so that's what we're doing. So here's what's happening. I guess I should explain this. I am currently in Minneapolis, and I'm going to be sort of, hosting this live stream of the press conference to our Vote Common Good channels and Christian Left channels. So hello, Christian Left folks. Doug Badger from Vote Common Good. Here's the press conference is going to start live. It's supposed to start live any minute now in the next couple of minutes at noon Eastern time. And so I got a little setup here where we're going to cut to that live, and I'm going to be down in the corner. And here's why. Just sort of make it a little bit more friendly, a little bit more conversational. If you've ever seen a press conference, or there can be little down times in between as people walk up to the microphone, and maybe you don't always know who everybody is and all the rest of it. So I'm going to be sharing with you some of the insights into what's going on. Also show you a couple of things that we're doing here at this event. You can see down here in the bottom corner of the screen is the thing we're going to be taking live here on Facebook when taking the Facebook stream live. But this is one of the moving billboards that we've put together for this event. Thanks especially to Nathan Epsall from Faithful America, this great idea to have these mobile billboards. This one obviously is on a boat. It's going to be coming along, riding along the beach in the area where this is all happening, saying, "Stop twisting faith to attack democracy." And so that one's going to be traveling along on a boat, which is pretty cool. And there's going to be a version of that that's also going to be on the back of a truck. So two trucks actually will be driving around in the area reminding people that this is what's going on. And there's a couple others of some other brands I really particularly like this one, because I do think that the Reawaken America tour, its emphasis, its attitude, its purpose for existence seems to me is really to try to twist democracy and some of the other things. So that's some of what we're going to be doing. In addition to this press conference that's going to start hopefully momentarily um, down there in Doral, just outside of Miami. So I'm just going to keep watching over here on the screen to see if if the press conference has started yet. It's going to be live streamed on the Vote Common Good Facebook page, and I'm going to take that Facebook page and put it on here. So anyway, that is if all things work right, just a sickly man in his basement trying to run all this. Hopefully it's all going to come together. Um, but look, I just want to say a little bit about why I think this is so important, because I hear it all the time and I feel it just like so many other people. Why can't voices of faith that care about the common good and care about each other and are more progressive and more thoughtful, how come those voices can't be more well known and well articulated in the media and all the other places? Why does it seem like these people, Sean Fuchs and Donald Trump and Michael Flynn and Roger Stone and Jerry Falwell Jr. and Franklin Graham, and why Marjorie Taylor Greene, why are these people the voices of Christianity in America? Well, part of that is because they just say a lot, right? They're out, they do things, they run events, they're just pushing their content all of the time. And personally, my own opinion is we're not made better by telling people to be quiet. We're made better when we raise our own voices. We live in a democracy. We live in a place where people certainly should be able to share their own beliefs, share their own ideas. I'm not wanting to tell these people to be quiet. What I want to do is encourage people of good conscience, goodwill, and common good faith to raise their voices. So I'm really proud to be part of this event, because I think that's what it does. It allows people to hear other voices and to get out. That's why we put out a lot of live streams. We produce a lot of videos. We do podcasts. We do events like the one that's happening in Miami right now, and bus tours around the country and walks, from Virginia to Washington, D.C. We did a thing called the Walk the Walk rally, where we spent 9 days walking 150 miles. Why we rode bicycles from California to St. Augustine, Florida, along the U.S.-Mexico border to tell the story there. So what we're trying to do is to be out in the world, do things that are worthy for people to listen to them, and all the rest. So that's what we're up to. That's what we're, and I think this particular event really does have that vibe to it. And I think it's a really good one, and I'm excited about it. So pardon me if I just keep looking over here. I'm just checking to see if this live stream the press conference has gone live yet. So anyway, thanks for sticking with us through this. I imagine the press conference will be 20 minutes or a half an hour or so. I think you're going to get to hear from some great people. I know Nathan Epsall will be there. I know that Amanda Tyler from Christians Against Christian Nationalism will be there. I know Jen Butler is going to be there. I'm super heartbroken that I'm not there. These are really good partners and really good people doing really good work. So I'm going to I'll keep up with all of you. At least we're in this together. Those of us watching this, I'm not there. You're not there. But we get to engage with the people who are there. So we'll be thankful for this chance and for this opportunity. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get the press conference up and going. There, there always is a lot of moving pieces to these things. The fact that the press cares about this and we can pull off a press conference, we also think is meaningful, right? To be able to say, okay, the people who believe the Reawaken America narrative, the people who believe that Donald Trump is a person of good conscience, good faithfulness. And look, my theory has been, look, Donald Trump is a beloved child of God, just like all the rest of us. What Jesus said about humanity is true of Donald Trump as well. Salt of the earth, light of the world. But not every salt of the earth and light of the world should be the president of the United States. He's not capable. He's, in fact, incapable of serving for the common good. Doesn't mean he's not beloved. Doesn't mean he's not a full human being that deserves respect and life and is loved and cared for by God and will always live inside the love and care of God. Of course, that's just true of humanity. But you shouldn't all of us shouldn't do everything, and this guy shouldn't be the president, and the people that are on these stages, they shouldn't be speaking, being the only voices people hear for Christianity and all the rest of it. So um, what we're trying to do is to create a context here in which people can really, kind of deeply understand what's happening in this event. And it can seem negative, right? It can seem, whenever you're a protester, and I've, the last, I don't know, decade of life, I've been engaged in lots of actions, activities, and protests. And it can sometimes seem like protesters are just negative, just against, just telling other people how to be and how not to be. It's not what this really is about, though. This is not about telling people how to be and how not to be. This is about raising a moral voice ourselves, raising moral conscience ourselves, raising up important issues that we know are going to matter to us and to a lot of other people. So that's really what this whole thing is about. Pardon my sort of glancing around here. Um, unlike a real news outfit, there's nobody in my ear. I can hear myself and I can hear what's going to be being played here. So, there's nobody else figuring out how this is all supposed to go. I just want to try to get. Uh, hey, Jim, good to see you in the chat. Jens, nice to see you. Lois, thanks for your Yabitz, good to see you again, too. Little bonus, by the way, if you're not used to watching our Vote Common Good stuff, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, we have a regular rhythm. And then often on Fridays and occasionally on Mondays, we also put out live streams and the rest. So wherever you're watching this, if you don't mind where you watch it and you're willing to watch over on YouTube, that just does us better. It works better in our algorithm, helps us to spread the stories better. So if you can be a YouTube person, head over to the Vote Common Good channel. It's just the way that algorithms work, right? And we know that there's some really important things that we can be doing and should be doing over there on our YouTube channel. So I'm keeping an eye out here and just seeing if they are if there's any more details on the updates. I mean, this is thrilling watch, right? Just want to make sure that I'm not missing it somewhere. By the way, if you don't know these other groups that I've mentioned, Faithful America, uh, uh, Christians Against Christian Nationalism, if you don't know Faith in Public Life, these are all really great groups. And a number of us join our efforts together on a regular basis to share our own work with each other. So we'd be very interested. And at Vote Common Good, we've been caring a lot about Christian nationalism. Not only is because of the threat of Christian nationalism on religion, which it really does have a great threat. I mean, it's very difficult for a religion when it combines itself with nationalism. Any religion, and this is true. I talk with people who, in their own context in other countries, deal with other kinds of nationalism. You can get it in Israel with Judaism. You can get it in Thailand with Buddhism. You can get it in India with Hinduism. You can get it in China with other expressions. So it's not only Christian religion that merges with America to create a Christian nationalist narrative in America. It's a problem for religion and nations all around the world. And it never goes well. It doesn't go well for the religion, and it doesn't go well for the country, for the nation. We actually have a whole training on this. We have live streams and podcasts. You can watch an hour and a half long live stream that has video clips and presentation. We do a long presentation, or you can get all of that in a 7-part podcast series called Confronting Christian Nationalism, put out by Vote Common Good. So you can search for all that and find all those places, because Christian nationalism has been around since the founding of this country. People have been advocating for it, and other people have been resisting it. I believe it's clear in the history of America that the people who were organizing this country at that time made a determination to not have a Christian nation. That was proposed. It was supported by people that we would be a Christian nation, and it was rejected. But that doesn't mean that that's the only time we're going to have to reject it. This might be one of the things that in some kind of a cycle, maybe not every day, maybe not every year, does the country have to ask itself, are we going to be a Christian nation? But every now and again, we do have to find our way to that question and to ask that question. And so we have a big effort on marching on Christian nationalism and the threat of Christian nationalism. We want to do something to provide alternatives to it, because a lot of people don't even know it or understand it. They're not even sure what it is. When we were doing these trainings, it was very interesting. I'm sure some of this will come up in the podcast or in the press conference today. We'd ask them, are you opposed to Christian nationalism? And obviously, people that come to our event that's entitled "The Threat of Christian Nationalism" likely feel like it's a problem. But they'd say, "Yeah, for sure," and then we'd say, "Well, what is it?" And they go, "Yeah, that's the part I don't really know. I'm not really sure. I have a good, solid definition." And I get it. Christian nationalism is an ideology. It's a way of viewing the world as much as it is a singular opinion about something. So it's not just one thing. It's a way of thinking about the world. The presumption is that the United States is God's special place in this world. The United States plays a special role, that God's agenda for humanity will be accomplished through the work of the United States, always has been that way, always will be that way. And so as citizens of the United States, we need to become faithful to God in a Christian way so that God will continue to bless, so that God will continue to see the United States as God's primary partner on earth to bring about God's agenda. Now, you get varying versions of that. You get it, in sort of as distilled as I just said it right there. And then you get lighter versions of it. You get sort of the Christian nationalist zero version, the diet Christian nationalism version, where people are like, well, I don't know if I go that far, but I do think the United States moral, laws should be based on Christianity. Yeah, no, it shouldn't. I mean, Christianity does have something to say about how people ought to live. And if we can find other reasons for us to have those as our laws, then sure, they can match up. But the authority for why we say this is how someone should be cannot come simply from any religion. That's the whole point. I've had the privilege of my congressional representative being Ilhan Omar. And Ilhan Omar is a very faithful Muslim woman. But I don't want her to go into the Quran to find out what the laws of the United States should be. And I don't want Nancy Pelosi going to the book of Matthew to find out what the laws of the United States should be, right? We need to figure out a way for our religious expressions to be very meaningful to all of us. I mean, it's what I do. I'm a religious person publicly and personally, and it really means a lot. But it doesn't mean that's how the government should be run. So this is the dilemma that we find ourselves in. And it's a worthwhile one, right? We should be having those conversations. Then you get groups like Reawaken America. And what they will say, you can also go watch their live streams. Look, you just Google Reawaken America tour events, and they're putting their stuff out there. This isn't a secret. They're tending to be public. You can go watch it. You can go listen to it. I mean, I have a little hard time with it after a while. I've sat in that tent, and had to take it on firsthand. So not always my favorite thing. But you can hear what they have to say, and I think you will find that their vision and version of America is not something that really matches what a lot of us want to see America being about. So I'm not exactly sure what to do here. This was supposed to start 11 minutes ago. Again, it's how press conferences work. But I wanted to give a little bit of context ahead of time, get people warmed up, let you start sharing this around with friends and family. If you're on YouTube, start texting that out. If you're on Facebook, write a comment in there. Let us know. We can see a bunch of you are watching. So it's good to have all of you here. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're have a comment yourself or a question, you can go into the chat and I will see that no matter what platform you're on. We do this on Twitch and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and actually multiple Facebook pages. So you might see only a few people watching where you are, but we're doing this on multiple channels all at the same time. All right, so they've gone live here. All right, so here we go.
I'm an Episcopal priest, but I'm here today with an online national community of grassroots Christians putting our faith into action for love and social justice.
Nathan Epsall.
Faithful America's members, like me, and tired of seeing our faith twisted, abused, and hijacked for a hateful authoritarian political agenda. Abused and hijacked by Christian nationalist leaders like Michael Flynn, Eric Trump, and their far-right pastor allies. Christian nationalism is perhaps the biggest threat facing both the church and democracy today. And in a few moments, you'll hear more about what that term means from my friend and colleague Amanda Tyler. But first, I'd like to talk about why this specific group of national and Florida speakers before you today is gathering in Miami when this is a threat all around the country. As we speak, the Reawaken America tour is stopping at Trump Doral down the street. Headlined by MAGA celebrities like Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, Mike Lindell, and Eric Trump, with dozens of religious leaders in tow like Sean Foyt and Lance Wallnau, the book burner Greg Locke. This pro-Trump tour is one of the most egregious examples of Christian nationalism we have seen since the January 6th insurrection. Some have called it QAnon 2.0, or a who's who of the new Christian right. I like to call it January 6th Goes to Church. Each Reawaken America tour is a toxic, extremist, heretical, and harmful blend of baptisms, praise music, election denial, and QAnon misinformation, things that do not belong together, all presented to an audience of thousands in Jesus' hijacked name. Worse yet, tour speakers risk inciting more unholy political violence everywhere they go. Now, they don't explicitly call for violence very often, but they don't have to. By defending January 6th, raising the stakes to apocalyptic proportions with holy war rhetoric, and telling audience members that they're all on, quote, Team Jesus, while their opponents are on Team Satan, the tour leaders create a permission structure for political violence. With this kind of thinking, God is on your side, and if God's favored candidate loses an election, anything goes. We've even learned this week from national cable news reports that several of the tour's most frequent speakers until this weekend have repeatedly defended Adolf Hitler and engaged in anti-Semitic tropes and lies. Now, this news shouldn't come as a surprise. It was at a Reawaken America event in a megachurch known for its anti-Semitic Texas pastor, John Hagee, that Michael Flynn declared America should only have one religion. I don't think he meant Judaism. The goal of Christian nationalism is clear: to seize political power for its conservative Christian adherents at all costs and at the expense of all others. That's not a religion. It is a political ideology, one that co-opts the symbols and rhetoric of religion, but only co-opts them, does not start with them, as we saw last night at the Pastors for Trump rally at Trump Doral. Amanda will say more about that, she was there, but Pastors for Trump has a habit of putting more political celebrities on the stage than actual pastors, and of calling something a prayer call or a prayer rally, and then spending only 2 minutes in actual prayer. That's not a use of faith, it's an abuse of faith to recruit for authoritarian politics. So this afternoon, let us be very clear. The anti-Semitism, hatred, election denial, and outright embrace of political violence found at Trump Doral has no place in Miami, no place in Florida, no place in America, and no place in Christianity.
Hear, hear. Right.
Where Reawaken America and Christian nationalism preach QAnon lies, Jesus says the truth shall set you free. Where Christian nationalism threatens political violence, Jesus is the Prince of Peace, who says those who live by the AR-15, I mean the sword, will die by the sword. And where Christian nationalism spreads hatred, Jesus says love your neighbor, no exceptions. I will finish with an announcement. It's in that spirit of peace, faith, hope, and love that I'm excited to say that Faithful America, along with allies at other organizations like Vote Common Good, is launching a preaching and prayer drive against Christian nationalism. On Sunday, June 10th, the week of Flag Day, hundreds of Christian preachers across Florida and across the country, who are members of groups like Faithful America and Vote Common Good, will take a stand against the hijacking of our faith from their pulpits. They'll reject the anti-democracy rhetoric of Reawaken America, and in its place, take a prophetic, Christ-like stance for peace, faith, hope, and love. You can find more and sign up to preach by visiting faithfulamerica.org and clicking Christian Nationalism in the upper corner. And we'll send you preaching resources to help. Thank you. With that, it is my honor to turn things over to my friend Amanda Tyler for Christians Against Christian Nationalism.
Sir, if you could do me a favor, if you could spell your name for me.
So,
Imsel, Reverend Nathan Imsel, M as in Mary, P as in Peter, S-A-L-L, Executive Director of Faithful America.
Thank you so much.
give them a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Obviously, outdoors in the wind. Amanda Tyler from Christians Against Christians.
Hello, my name is Amanda Tyler. I am Executive Director of the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty and the lead organizer of Christians Against Christian Nationalism. As a Baptist lay leader and a First Amendment lawyer, as a faithful Christian and a patriotic American, I'm speaking out because I am deeply concerned about how Christian nationalism is threatening both our democracy and a faithful Christian witness. Christian nationalism is a poisonous ideology and cultural framework that seeks to merge American and Christian identities. It suggests that to be a real American, one must be a Christian, and not just any kind of Christian, but a particular type of Christian who espouses fundamentalist beliefs in conservative political positions.
Yeah,
Christian nationalism overlaps with and provides cover for white supremacy and racial subjugation. Last night, I witnessed firsthand how this ideology is being used to foment unrest and spread lies and conspiracy theories about COVID vaccines and the security of our election system. Speakers at the Pastors for Trump gathering at Trump Doral laced scripture and prayer into their political speeches, labeling the election as a quote-unquote spiritual war and using violent and militaristic language. They claim to have heard prophecies that Donald Trump will be elected again and encouraged the crowd that they were put into this moment in time to ensure that happens again at whatever price. This violent rhetoric is irresponsible and dangerous. We are here today as Christians who are horrified to see the faith that we hold dear being used to spread lies, violence, and authoritarian theocracy. We are here to say to the millions of Christians across this country who are likewise horrified and angry about Christian nationalism, you are not alone. We are organizing through a number of initiatives, including Christians Against Christian Nationalism. We invite you to join our movement at christiansagainstchristiannationalism.org. There you can sign your name to a statement of principles that embrace the equality of all Americans regardless of religious identity, that holds up religious freedom for all as a necessary component of our pluralistic democracy, that rejects Christian nationalism as an anti-democratic and idolatrous ideology. At Christians Against Christian Nationalism, we also provide resources to individuals and congregations to understand Christian nationalism and how it shows up in our society today. And then we can support and resource you to help work to dismantle Christian nationalism from ourselves, from our theologies, from our worship practices, and from our communities. Christians, particularly white Christians, who have done the most to perpetuate this ideology and have also in some ways benefited from the ideology, have a special responsibility to stand up and stand against Christian nationalism and to explain how it is a gross distortion of Christianity. Christian nationalism takes the central meaning of Christianity, the gospel of love, and turns it into a false idol of power. We are here to speak as Christians against Christian nationalism because nothing short of our democracy and our faithful Christian witness is at stake. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the Reverend Dr. Russell Meyer, Executive Director of the Florida Council of Churches.
It was Amanda Tyler from Christians Against
Thank you,
Christian
Amanda. It's
Nationalism.
good to have you
Follow
back
her
in
if you're
Florida.
all this.
Again, Amanda has done workshops across Florida on Christian nationalism, and we appreciate very much the work that she and Nathan and Jen Butler and others in this national coalition are doing to help local churches address Christian nationalism when the Reawaken America tour shows up. We have to be clear about what this tour is about. It's actually about putting people to sleep, because otherwise you'd have a woke Florida And those of us in Florida know what wokeness is all about, right?
It's important to note these events Reawaken America.
Jesus' church is in every land,
not just in Florida.
and it welcomes people from everywhere, wherever it is. The church offers healing to everyone. It's in America, Africa, Asia, and Europe, but it is of God. If you make it about one nation, it is no longer the Church of Jesus Christ. And what the Reawaken America tour attempts to do is to make Christianity about America first. That means it's not the Church of Jesus Christ, and they are taking the Lord's name in vain. And we have to be clear about saying this. The phrase America First was first established in the late 20s and early 30s, in which religious leaders openly said they supported fascism. That was until Pearl Harbor happened. We have to be very clear that all attempts to use religion for the sake of violence in order to extend to government violent force, coercive force, to force religious conviction upon people against their conscience, that all attempts in that name are not only false religion, but they're also false politics. We're at an important point in human history, a critical moment, a moment of crisis. The Bible speaks of crisis as an opportunity to go one way or the other. It's when we get to make a judgment about ourselves, about which way we will go. We now face a totally international population in Florida and across this country. We are not simply a nation made of people who came from one other place in the world, Northern Europe. We are people from everywhere. And so Christianity has always represented that it goes into every land, it accepts every people. It brings healing and hope, wholeness and salvation to everyone. It cannot be set aside as the exclusive privilege of a few people who feel like their world has been lost. We're at a place now where we get to write a new narrative about who we are as citizens of the United States. We have seen in the last session in the Florida legislature a mild side, if you would, of what's going on at the Trump doral this weekend, in which law after law was passed that picked on the most vulnerable people in our society to try and ostracize them and make them the focus of all of the conversation, while at the same time handing much of the largest budget in the state's history over to great wealth that does not need it. So we have to be very clear about what's actually happening in the Christian nationalism movement. It's taking the broken hearts and the broken hopes of people who once thought of themselves in charge and stirring up their passions and their anger towards violence so that big money can pocket more of this nation's resources and deny those resources to the average person in society. At the end of the day, this is an economic rape of Americans in using the false name of religion to do it, backed up by violence. Instead of addressing insurance premiums doubling and tripling on homeowners, instead of addressing the failure of the minimum wage to actually pay rent and buy food, instead of addressing Medicaid expansion, 1 million people go off of health care today with the expiration of the COVID protocol rules. Instead of addressing the real needs of Floridians, across the board. This legislature has preempted and set back what were bipartisan advances for immigrants in the criminal justice system, in basic assurances that we were going to create a state in which everybody could thrive. And they've done it under the name of protecting traditional values. Well, the traditional value of Christianity is to love your neighbor as yourself and to welcome the stranger as a citizen among you. Amen. Those are the traditional biblical values. Right. And you do not use violence to do that. Yep. What you do is you convince people not to use their freedom for self-indulgence, but to use their freedom to advance the needs of their neighbor. Right. And we will not be a free Florida until we take our neighbor's need as important as our own desires. And so we have to understand that the challenge for the church in Florida in addressing Christian nationalism is to see through its use of violence to hide the greed and corruption that lies behind it. And we must insist that we have a Florida that really prospers for everyone and not just a few. There's a reason that over 250 billionaires have moved their homestead to Florida in recent years. And you better understand that Christian nationalism is the political tool they use in order to hide their wealth and take more of our hard-earned money and put it in their offshore accounts.
All right, well, sorry about that. It looks like there's a bit of a glitch in the live feed that's happening here. You can see.
Let us be clear that
you can see how something like Christian nationalism becomes this backdrop for all these other
addressing Christian nationalism. What we are actually trying to do is restore the one thing that really makes for a free society in Florida. And let me tell you what that is.
Wow, it's still going.
Free public schools.
Yeah. Amen.
And we are killing our schools rapidly, and you'll hear more about that from my colleague Reverend Golden, so I don't want to steal his thunder. But we should be putting our attention and our money, we should be doubling our resources into free public schools, because that's the basis by which opportunity gets extended to every young person in the state of Florida. Thank you very much.
You can leave it there.
My name is Sean White-Besson. I'm actually going for social justice.
All right, this one's gonna be difficult here. I'm not sure we're gonna be able to hear him. Clearly has a situation in his throat, which is why he's trying to choke. I'm just gonna drop the audio off. I can hear him, so
Christian nationalism
I'm assuming this is
and the announcing
the speaker was
as
just referring to.
masquerading as Christianity, which makes it
Look, I just want to make a couple of comments. It's easy
we have
in
here
Christian nationalism
to invite and call
confronting Christian
God
nationalism to
omnipotent
feel like
and all
that the people who advocate for Christian nationalism are also not being Christian enough to want to say, here's how you're more Christian. I'll just say, I think that starts to run a line now, because the question is not, are the Christian nationalists doing Christianity rightly and caring for the vulnerable and for the least of these, including everyone? So, because if they are, then Christianity should be part of the American civil structures. It doesn't matter if you're doing Christianity right or you're doing Christianity improperly. Okay? The question is separating religion from our civil
Everyone,
life.
I am the Reverend Jennifer Butler, the founder of Faith in Public Life Action, and I am here to say that the Reawaken America tour promotes the violent heresy of white Christian nationalism. It is like a wolf in sheep's clothing. White Christian nationalists hijack our faith, our religious language, and our symbols to violate our God-given freedoms and our dignity. The Reawaken America Tour has given a platform to extremist politicians and leaders who spread disinformation and promote dangerous rhetoric that especially targets Jews, Black, Brown, Muslim, Sikh, and LGBTQ people. I was at the Reawaken America conference in Batavia, New York, and as I drove up to the campgrounds, which were hosted, it was hosted at a church there, lining the driveway were signs that said, "No guns, no knives." Never in my life have I been at a church ground that needed to have those signs reminding people that they could not bring their weapons on the grounds. As a Christian and as a pastor, I must denounce this twisting of my faith, this leading of people astray into a spiritual crisis and a spiritual disease that harms families and disrupts and breaks communities. The same lies and violence promoted by white Christian nationalism are at the root of so many of the dangerous bills that are having a negative impact right here in Florida and in spreading across the country. Those bills target trans youth and trans people and anti-LGBTQ, anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion bills, the 6-week abortion ban, efforts to silence teachers and to ban books, to erase history, to indoctrinate children. This, my friends, is the beginning of fascism, and we must oppose it at all costs. This is the result of what Reawaken America Tour and others are doing. It is not Christian. It does not belong in a democracy. It is the weaponizing of our faith. And that is why I wrote this book, Who Stole My Bible? Who stole our Bible? Let me hear it. Christian nationalists. What do we need to do? We need to reclaim Scripture as a handbook for resisting tyranny. The great thing is, and our hope is that the whole Bible is a manual of operations for opposing autocrats. The creation story, in which God creates and calls everything good, not once but 6 times. The creation story in which God says everybody is created in my image, not for slavery, which is what people believed in that time and in that day. This was a radical teaching that the Jewish people gave to the world and has become the basis of democracy and human rights. This is where we stand, and we must reclaim our faith from those who are hijacking it. This is why Faith in Public Life Action has been working with faith leaders across this region, across the country, and in Florida to go to the state capitol to speak out against legislation that harms our communities and to lift up God's vision of human dignity and flourishing for all people. I have hope today, and let me tell you why I have hope. When you look at the logos on those trucks, there are 3 million people of faith, Christians in particular, whose faith has been hijacked, who are saying no to the hijacking of their faith. We are joined together in solidarity, and there are those of you who have turned out today in this hot sun to raise up your voices, those who are joining with us online, and the people of Florida who have come out and hosted this great event to reclaim our faith for justice. I've learned that hope is not a wishful thought, and it's not necessarily a good feeling. Hope is a commitment. It's a commitment to God's vision, a commitment to a future in which all human beings can flourish. We all have that commitment, and when we work together in solidarity, we can stand up against tyrants, as people have done throughout Scripture and throughout history. Against all odds, they have opposed tyrants and prevailed, and we will do the same. Thank you so much.
That's excellent work by Jennifer.
I'd like to call up Reverend Golden, who is the head of pastors for children.
Sir, if you could just say your full name for me and spell it when you get there.
Good morning. I am the Reverend James T. Golden. That is spelled James T. Golden. I'm one of 3 co-founders of Pastors for Florida Children, 501c3 organization, nonprofit, committed to seeking the full funding of public schools in the state for all students. And we are in full support of stopping the spread of the divisive message of so-called Christian nationalism, which is nothing more than a secularistic abomination of a nonsensical idea which is devoid of any Christian theological legitimacy and denigrates the faith-filled efforts to promote the promise to be found in one nation under God. The so-called Christian nationalism being propagated over at Trump Doral today by self-serving secularists among us is not founded on true Christian principles. Neither does it produce or promote a diverse, equitable, and inclusive nation that is committed to true constitutional democratic principles upon which this nation was founded. The free exercise of religion and the non-establishment of any religion by the government. Instead, this abomination solely seeks to embrace and elevate white supremacy, white power, and white superiority. Its foundational purposes are to weaponize opposition to a free, quality public education for all. The Hebrew scriptures teach, my people perish, not for the lack of resources, not for the lack of faith, not for the lack of hope, nor the lack of love. My people perish for the lack of knowledge. And this movement is simply designed to circumscribe the knowledge that we have had access to more and more since the founding of this country. Yes. They want to roll back, eliminate, obscure, minimize the knowledge that we have already gained. One thing I know for sure, the love of money is the root of all evil, not the lack of knowledge.
That's right. That's right.
We find here that they also are trying to mobilize over there groups that are supportive of this dystopian vision of our nation. Even as we who are standing here today and those who are watching and those who are allies and colleagues with us in this effort seek to move forward toward a multi-faith, multi-ethnic, and multicultural society founded upon shared knowledge that we have each other, that we have about each other, and not letting the fear of each other drive our other, whatever that may be. And it takes a form in many directions now in our country. Right. It is defined, it will not stop us from facing the rising sun of a new day begun. We come today to say that as we have overcome the ages of colonialism, the age of expansionism, the age of isolationism, the age of secularism, and the age of materialism, to serve the present age, our calling to fulfill. Oh, may all our power engage to destroy, dismantle, disrupt so-called Christian nationalism. For truly, in this country, we have always sought, even though we started as a country founded on a constitution by white male property owners, every generation has made itself more equitable, more inclusive, and more diverse. Ain't gonna let nobody, not Trump, not Flynn, not Stone, not anybody is gonna turn us around.
That's excellent. Excellent. So I don't know if somebody else is coming up. It's obviously a very full press conference. Oh, yeah, Charles Toy, Christian Left.
Good afternoon. My name is Charles Toy. I'm executive. Pardon me?
A little louder.
I'm executive director of the Christian Left, and we started back in 2009 on social media. Today we have 375,000 people on one of our pages and 155 on the other, which is called Progressive Christians and Friends. So I've heard some great things here today. I'm really encouraged by the things I've heard. I like the fact that people are calling this Christian national thing an abomination, because I wholeheartedly agree that it's an abomination. And I'm going to make sure, there's quite a few people that are streaming this today, and I'm going to make sure that our 375,000 people on one page and 150,000 on the other see every word that's been spoken today. So I'm really happy about that. And so it's not just, looks like a small group here, but we're going to reach out to close to 3 million people with all the people represented here. So we're all kind of preaching to the choir as we address one another today, but we're really addressing a larger group as well. We're addressing the world by acting as a witness and speaking the truth. This ongoing tour called Reawaken America that's traveling around to the Church of the United States does not represent the core message of Jesus in any way. In fact, their message is the opposite of everything Jesus taught. In Matthew 25, Jesus taught how we are to treat the least of these, that determines whether or not he recognizes us as his followers. How we treat the least of these. Right-wing policy and ideology throws the least of these under the bus every chance they get. In lawmaking, in policy, in ideology, as somebody said earlier today, they target the most vulnerable, and they rally everyone against the most vulnerable while they funnel power and money to the rich. That's what this is. I'm glad somebody said this is an economic undertaking, because underneath it all, this is about the haves and the have-nots, and they're trying to commandeer Christianity as a tool, and they have been for the last 50 years at least in this new movement. That's why we came up with the Christian left, because the Christian right is out of bounds. Jesus said that the law and all the prophets can be summarized with two general rules. Love God and love your neighbor as you do yourself. When the rich man asked Jesus who his neighbor is, Jesus told the story of the Good Samaritan in Luke 10. Jesus said it was he who showed mercy to the man on the roadside when others passed him by. It was the Good Samaritan who followed the law to love your neighbor, fulfilling the requirements of everlasting life. What's interesting about that is that the Jews had an ongoing feud with Samaritans from the time they returned from Babylonian captivity. Bible students call this the Samaritan Schism. The Jews called Samaritans half-breeds. Samaritans built their own temple, which the Jews considered pagan. Despite all this, Jesus chose the Samaritan as the central character in his parable regarding everlasting life. I wonder if Jesus was in today's world, would he change the parable to the good trans person who did the right thing, the person in distress? Because trans people are those who our governor of this state seems to like to target a lot of gay people, or the good gay person. It was the Samaritans who lived up to the law, the prophets on the roadside when they encountered a distressed person who needed help. Those on the right will tell you that all these examples are intended for individuals and not the U.S. government. Yet they turn around and impose their misguided view of the Bible on the reproductive rights of women. There are many other double standards they follow, too many to discuss here. The Reawaken America Tour attacks science and innovation as one of their central themes. All I can say to that is apparently they didn't learn their lesson with Galileo. Fundamentalists in the church have a long misguided history of attacking science. My advice to the people who carry out the Reawaken American Tour and those attending it in this city this weekend, if you want to live by the real fundamentalist message of the Bible, focus on loving God and loving your neighbor as you do yourself. It goes without saying that those who have the influence over U.S. policy should do what they can to help the least of these, which would include anyone who's a vulnerable group, trans people, gay people, women who are now dying because they can't get reproductive care because of these draconian laws that we now have. If you want to understand why America has lost its way, is because we've treated the least of these poorly. Thank you.
Looks like it's coming to an end.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you to all of our speakers and guests today. Thank you to the press that's watching on the live stream or gathered here today. Your work is so important for democracy. We appreciate you covering all aspects of this important discussion. Christian nationalist leaders want you to think, they'll say that up the stage at Reawaken America. Michael Flynn and Clay Clark will say, you're either a Christian nationalist or an atheistic globalist. But we are here today to show that Christianity is so much more diverse and beautiful than what they will tell you it is. We will not doubt their faith, but we will show you how expansive and beautiful and love-rooted our faith truly is. So thank you for coming out today. I'm going to close with a couple quick announcements. One, you have heard from 7 speakers today. We had several others who were scheduled to be with us but had last-minute emergencies or other conflicts come up. I'd like to still thank Pastor Carlos Barbajal, the Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis, Pastor Doug Padgett of O Common Good, and the Reverend Dr. Van Gaten for their support nationally and across Florida. 11 speakers is still just 11 people, but we aren't speaking just for 11 people. Here next to me are 70,000 signatures. 40,000 signatures from faithful American members in all 50 states against the Reawaken America Tour. They don't fit in one book. We needed 3. Some asking venues and churches not to host the tour. We're saying the tour does not speak for me. That's just the Reawaken America Tour. You heard from my colleague Amanda Tyler talking about ChristiansAgainstChristianNationalism.org, where you can sign this statement and join these 30,000 people. Too many for one book. And if 70,000 doesn't sound like a lot, the logos on the truck behind us, there are 23 logos here that said, we are with you against the Reawaken America Tour. Put our logo up for that press conference. And together, these 23 groups represent nearly 3 million people. There are activist groups like Vote Common Good, Sojourners, Red Letter Christians, and there are churches. You heard from the Florida Council of Churches today. There's an entire denomination up there, the United Church of Christ. The Reverend Dr. John Dorhauer, president of the United Church of Christ, told me, put our logo up there. The Reawaken America Tour is an abomination and we are behind you. So when you hear people say about the religious right, where are the churches? Why aren't you speaking up? We are speaking up. We're here. We're sick of Reawaken America and Christian nationalism erasing progressive Catholics, mainline Protestants, and the black church tradition. We are speaking up loudly and together. The last announcement I have, you see these trucks, you see these logos, they're not just on land, they're on water. There is a boat in Miami Bay today and on the Miami River with a similar video and similar logos, and it can be seen. You can't know where it is all the time because of wind and water conditions, but if you would like to see it, it will stop at 3 p.m. at Brickell Avenue. Guthrie, do you remember the name of the restaurant?
No, it's in the W.
Huh?
It's in the W Hotel. The restaurant is.
Oh, the restaurant is in the W Hotel. Great, that's even better than the name of the restaurant. So the boat will stop outside the W Hotel off Brickell Avenue in Miami Bay. You can take a look at it for about 15 minutes there, and we'll have pictures and videos on the BJC and Faithful America Twitter accounts. We are a church people. We are grounded in the hope of the revolution. The hope of the resurrection. And so we're going to end today, we're going to ground ourselves in some hope. We're going to end today with song like the church people we are. Will you please join me?
One last, we do want to thank Father Lopez and all Angels Episcopal Church for allowing us to gather here today and to hold this meeting. It illustrates the network of churches that is the Florida Council of Churches across the state, over 1 million Floridians going back to 1947, constantly trying to bring people together so that all Floridians thrive. Thank you, Father Lopez.
I knew I was forgetting something. Thank you. So let us wrap things up here at All Angels Episcopal Church, like the church people we are, in song. Won't you please join me for 2 verses of This Little Light of Mine?
All right, well,
I'm
going to just take a...
I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of
I'm sure it sounds
mine.
great there.
I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
Won't let Christian nationalism blow it out.
Won't let Christian nationalism blow it out. Won't let Christian nationalism blow it out. Won't let Christian nationalism blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine.
All those organizations are fantastic. You can find all those details in the
Thank you.
faithfulamerica.org. You can find it at Christian National.
And if there are any questions, we've been standing in the hot sun. We're happy to take them individually.
In the shade.
Faith
Yeah,
Public
in the
Life,
shade.
and of course, for our work, for the common good, get you connections to all that stuff. So thank you so much for being part
Thanks
of all
for
this,
coming out.
for your prophetic voices and standing up to narratives that harm not only faith, harm the country, and harm individuals. So thanks for being a part of this, and we'll be back again another time next week.